never thought I'd see my entire life burn down in front of me. The sound of fire isn't what people think. It's not a soft crackle like in movies. It screams, it roars, it eats. I remember standing barefoot in the driveway, watching flames crawl up the white siding of my house, the heat punching my skin, my throat filling with smoke and disbelief. My wife was screaming somewhere behind me, and all I could do was stare. My home, the one I built with my own hands, the one where my daughter took her first steps, was disappearing into orange chaos. And right there, across the street, standing under the flickering glow of the fire trucks, was Karen. Her arms were folded, her lips curved just slightly. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shocked. She was smiling, just enough to make my stomach twist. That image burned itself deeper into my memory than the fire ever could. That night, something inside me changed. It started 6 months before the fire. When my wife Emily and I bought the house, we thought we'd finally made it. A quiet neighborhood, good schools, tree-lined streets. Everything looked perfect. But perfection had a name, and her name was Karen. She was the president of the HOA, the Homeowners Association. And she took that role like it was a military position. The first week we moved in, she came to our door with a clipboard in hand. That tight smile glued to her face. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, handing me a list. Just a few reminders. No trash cans visible from the street. Lawns must be cut every 5 days, and, "Oh, your mailbox color doesn't meet the community standard." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. Karen had this way of speaking like every word was a rule, and every rule was her law. She watched everything. If I left my truck parked on the street for more than 10 minutes, I'd get an email. If my daughter's bike was on the lawn, she'd remind me that clutter wasn't allowed. It was like living under surveillance, except the camera had blonde hair and a name tag that said HOA President. At first, I tried to be polite. Emily told me to ignore her, that she was just one of those people who needed control. But ignoring Karen was like ignoring a storm. She'd find a way to make you feel her presence. The first real conflict started over our backyard fence. It was an old wooden fence, a little worn, but nothing dangerous. One morning, I came outside to find a bright orange notice taped to it. Violation number 102, unauthorized structure modification. Karen was standing at the end of my driveway, sipping coffee like she owned the place. "You'll need to replace that fence," she said. "It's not HOA approved." "It's been here for years," I told her. "The previous owner built it." She smiled. "Then you can thank him for your first fine." It wasn't about the fence. It was about control. From there, things just kept getting worse. She'd walk her little white dog past my yard every morning, taking pictures with her phone. She filed a complaint when I hung Christmas lights before Thanksgiving. When Emily planted roses in the front garden, Karen emailed a formal warning because they were non-compliant flora. I started calling her the Watcher. One night, I caught her standing in front of our house at 10 p.m., flashlight in hand, staring at our lawn. I stepped outside and said, "Karen, what the hell are you doing?" She jumped slightly, then said in that calm, condescending tone, "Just checking for sprinkler leaks. HOA property water flows affect everyone." I told her to leave. She did, slowly, without looking guilty. But after that, strange things started happening. My trash cans were knocked over every Tuesday morning. A nail appeared in my truck tire. Someone scratched pig into my mailbox with a key. Emily thought it was kids. I knew better. One evening, as I was cleaning the garage, I heard Karen arguing with someone over the phone. Her voice carried across the cul-de-sac, sharp, angry, desperate. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught the words. "He thinks he can ignore me. I'll show him what happens." That night, I installed security cameras. 3 weeks later, the fire happened. It was 2:47 a.m. when the smoke alarm screamed. I remember jumping out of bed, the house already full of thick black smoke. Emily grabbed our daughter. I ran toward the living room, but the flames were already climbing up the curtains. I barely had time to shove open the front door before the windows burst behind me. By the time the fire trucks arrived, it was too late. Everything was gone. The firefighters told me later that the fire started near the back fence. The same one Karen had been complaining about. Gasoline residue was found in the soil. It wasn't an accident. The cops asked if I had any enemies. I said just one name, Karen. But when they went to question her, she played innocent. She told them I'd been aggressive. that I'd harassed her over HOA disputes, that maybe I'd set my own fire for insurance money. She twisted everything. There wasn't enough evidence, not yet. For weeks, I lived out of a motel, surrounded by the ashes of my life, waiting for justice that didn't come. But I never stopped watching her. One afternoon, I saw her walking her dog past the ruins of my house, still smirking. That was the moment I decided I wouldn't let it go. I called a lawyer. I filed a civil suit for harassment, property damage, and emotional distress. I turned over every photo, every email, every complaint she'd ever filed. My security cameras hadn't caught the fire, but they did catch something else. Footage from a week before the fire. Karen, in the middle of the night, walking around the side of my house with a flashlight. She was holding something shiny. A gas can. That was enough to open a case. Months later, when the trial finally began, I thought I'd finally be able to breathe again. The courtroom felt cold, the kind of cold that comes from waiting too long for justice. I sat there, my hands shaking, staring at the door where the defendant would walk in. And when it opened, I froze. Because standing there in handcuffs, orange jumpsuit, that same smug smile, was Karen. But she wasn't looking at me. She was looking through me, like she already knew something I didn't. The judge read the charges. The prosecutor started the case. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized this wasn't over. The courtroom smelled like paper and fear. When the judge called the session to order, the air felt heavy, like even the walls knew something dark was about to unfold. Karen stood there, her orange jumpsuit crisp, her hair tied neatly like she was still running the HOA meeting instead of facing an arson charge. She didn't look guilty. She looked in control. When her eyes met mine, she tilted her head and smiled, that same infuriating half-smile I'd seen across the street on the night my house burned down. My stomach twisted. I wanted to shout, to tell everyone what she'd done, to scream that the monster they were looking at had destroyed my life. But I stayed silent. My lawyer's hand gripped my shoulder, a reminder to keep calm. The prosecutor began laying out the evidence, photos of the burned property, the gas residue analysis, my security footage showing Karen circling my home. Every image felt like a punch, but it also felt like justice was inching closer. Finally, when the defense lawyer stood, the tone of the room shifted. He was young, confident, and smirked almost the same way Karen did. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said smoothly, "my client, Mrs. Whitmore, is a respected member of her community. She's been harassed, threatened, and publicly defamed by Mr. Daniels." I clenched my jaw. Harassed? She'd been the one stalking me. He continued, "The security footage proves nothing. There's no timestamp showing when that gas can was used. My client was conducting a neighborhood inspection for the HOA, something she's required to do." Karen nodded along, pretending to be calm and cooperative. Then she looked right at me. That smile again. I whispered to my lawyer, "She's lying. She's been lying since day one." When it was my turn to take the stand, I could feel every heartbeat echoing in my ears. The courtroom lights were too bright. My throat was dry. I looked at the jury, regular people, just trying to decide whether they believed me or her. "I moved into that neighborhood to raise my family," I began. Karen made it her mission to destroy our peace. Every day, she found new ways to make us miserable. Fines, emails, warnings, it never stopped. Then the threats started. I told them everything, about the nails in my tires, the scratched mailbox, the arguments, and the night I saw her outside with a flashlight. I told them about the smirk as my home burned. My voice broke halfway through, but I didn't care. It wasn't about pride anymore. It was about truth. When I stepped down, Karen took the stand, and she played the perfect victim. "I was terrified of him," she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound real. "He yelled at me, followed me, even threatened me once during a board meeting. I only wanted to protect our community." She looked at the jury, eyes glistening with fake tears. "He lost his home, and I understand his pain. But blaming me? It's cruel." It was like watching a professional actress. She twisted every fact, reshaped every encounter into something ugly. The jury listened, too carefully. I could feel the doubt creeping into the room. That night, I sat in my motel room staring at the ceiling, unable to breathe. What if she got away with it? What if she walked out free and moved on to another neighborhood? another family. The idea made my skin crawl. Emily tried to comfort me, but she was just as broken. Our daughter still woke up crying. Asking when we could go home, I didn't have an answer. All I had left was anger. Cold, relentless anger. The next day, something unexpected happened. A man approached me outside the courthouse, a neighbor I barely knew. His name was David, and he lived 2 streets over. He looked nervous, constantly glancing around. "I heard what happened," he said quietly, "and I think I can help." I frowned. "Help how?" He hesitated, then said, "I have cameras too. Everyone knows Karen walks around the neighborhood after dark. I caught her once, 2 nights before your fire. She was dragging something behind your property line. Looked like a gas can." My pulse spiked. "You still have the footage?" He nodded. "I didn't want to get involved before, but seeing you in court, I couldn't stay quiet." That night, my lawyer and I watched the video. It was grainy, but clear enough. Karen in her signature pink sweater, flashlight in one hand, gas can in the other. She stopped right by my back fence, looked around, and disappeared behind the trees. We took it straight to the prosecutor. When the trial resumed, that new footage changed everything. The prosecutor played it in complete silence. The room froze. Karen's face went pale for the first time. Her smile vanished. The prosecutor spoke calmly. Mrs. Whitmore claimed she was inspecting neighborhood property, yet she was recorded carrying a gas container 2 nights before a house in that exact location burned down. "That's not a coincidence. That's intent." Karen's lawyer tried to object, but his voice cracked. He knew they were done. When the jury left to deliberate, I sat with my hands shaking. Every second felt like an hour. Emily held my arm tightly, whispering, "Whatever happens, we made it this far." 47 minutes later, the jury returned. The foreman stood, handed the paper to the judge, and the words hit me like a shockwave. "On the charge of arson in the 1st degree, we find the defendant guilty." Karen didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just turned her head toward me, that cold, blank stare back in place, and whispered, "This isn't over." The bailiff led her away in cuffs, but her words hung in the air. For the first time in months, I should have felt relief, but instead, I felt something else. Fear. Because when I got home later that evening, the motel door was slightly open. Inside, everything looked normal except for one thing. On the bed was a single envelope. No name, no address, just a note inside written in perfect, neat handwriting. It said, "You took everything from me. Now it's your turn." And taped to the note was a picture of my daughter's school. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the note. The handwriting was neat, calm, deliberate, the kind of handwriting you'd expect on a thank you card. Not a threat. The photo underneath it showed my daughter's school playground. The swing set empty, the sky gray. Just looking at it made my stomach twist. Emily came out of the bathroom, saw my face, and froze. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice already trembling. I handed her the note. She read it once, then twice, and the color drained from her face. "Jake, this can't be real." "She's in jail." I shook my head. "Somebody delivered this. Someone working for her." Within minutes, I called the police. They sent an officer to the motel, took photos, wrote a report, and promised to increase patrols near the school. But I could tell by their faces. They weren't convinced. To them, it was just a creepy letter. To me, it was a warning. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time a car passed outside, I flinched. I checked the lock on the door 5 times, made sure the windows were shut, and kept the lights on until sunrise. 2 days later, my lawyer called. "Jake," he said, "I just got word. Karen requested a retrial motion. Her attorney's arguing procedural errors." My chest tightened. "You're kidding." "I wish I were." "The motion's unlikely to succeed, but it means she'll be back in court for a hearing." Just hearing her name again made the walls feel smaller. The morning of the hearing, I drove to the courthouse early. Emily stayed home with our daughter. I didn't want them anywhere near this woman again. As I sat outside the courtroom, I could feel that old anxiety building in my chest. Then the door opened. Karen walked in, wearing a plain beige prison outfit this time. No smile, no smirk. But when she glanced at me, her eyes didn't look defeated. They looked focused, like she was already planning her next move. The judge denied the motion. It should have been over right there. But when they escorted her out, she turned to me and said softly, You think bars can stop me? I didn't answer. I couldn't. That evening, when I picked my daughter up from school, the principal stopped me. "Mr. Daniels," she said, "someone dropped this off at the office this morning. They said it was for you." It was another envelope, same handwriting. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. Karen in the county jail visiting area, sitting across from a man I'd never seen before. He had a shaved head, tattoos running up his neck, and cold eyes staring straight into the camera. On the back of the photo, written in red ink, were 5 words. "He owes me a favor." That was the moment I realized she wasn't done, not even close. The police got involved again, this time taking it seriously. They found the man from the photo. His name was Rick Nolan, a small-time felon who'd done landscaping, work for the HOA. He'd visited Karen twice since her conviction. They questioned him, but he claimed it was just about old business. Old business, right. That night, I moved my family out of the motel and into a rental 2 towns over. I installed cameras, alarms, motion lights, anything that might make me feel safe. But even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Every sound felt wrong. Every night seemed too quiet. 1 week later, at 3:12 a.m., I woke up to the sound of gravel crunching outside. I grabbed the baseball bat from under the bed and looked through the blinds. A dark truck was parked across the street. Engine running, headlights off. I dialed 911 immediately. Before the dispatcher could finish her sentence, the truck sped off. When the police arrived, they found tire tracks that matched a landscaping company's vehicle. One registered under Rick Nolan's name. He disappeared the next day. For 3 weeks, there was nothing. No letters, no photos. Just silence. The kind that feels too calm to trust. Then one morning, I received a call from Detective Ramirez, the officer handling the arson case. "Jake," she said, "you might want to sit down for this." Karen was dead. She'd been found in her cell early that morning. No signs of struggle, no visible injuries. Official cause of death, cardiac arrest. She was only 49. I didn't know what to feel. Relief, shock, fear, maybe all of it at once. A part of me wanted to believe it was over. That maybe somehow justice had finally done its job. But deep down, something didn't add up. Karen wasn't the kind of person to give up. 2 days later, I got one last envelope. No return address. Inside was a small folded piece of paper with a single sentence. "Promises don't die. People do." There was no signature, but the handwriting was the same. I sat there for a long time, staring at that note. The house was quiet, my daughter asleep down the hall, Emily pretending to read but watching me from across the room. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. Karen didn't just destroy our house. She'd carved herself into our lives, into our fear, and maybe somehow that was her real victory. A month later, I started rebuilding. Not just the house, but everything. Trust, peace, normalcy. Every hammer strike, every nail felt like a small step away from the ashes she left behind. But sometimes at night when the wind hits the windows just right, I swear I still hear her voice, that soft, mocking tone saying, "You think bars can stop me?" Maybe it's just my mind replaying what it can't forget. Or maybe some ghosts don't burn away so easily. If you're watching this right now, remember this: evil doesn't always come with a mask or a weapon. Sometimes it wears a friendly smile, holds a clipboard, and tells you it just wants to keep the neighborhood beautiful. So keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and if someone ever tries to control your life piece by piece, don't wait for the fire to start. Because by the time you see the flames, it's already too late. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button, share it with someone who loves suspense, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if your HOA neighbor turned into your worst nightmare?